By Mr. Sear, transfer fee for seasonal communities.
Senator Sear.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak on Amendment 238, transfer fee for seasonal communities. I will also talk about Amendment 313, Islands Pilot. So these amendments propose to offer municipalities within a seasonal communities designation in the case of Amendment 238, and then the towns on the islands in my district, Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, in the case of 313, with the option to adopt a transfer fee, local option transfer fee, without going through the time-consuming and lengthy home rule petition process. The Cape and Islands are true treasures of the Commonwealth. We draw visitors from across New England, across the United States, and across the world, and that brings revenue for the entire state from our thriving and vibrant tourism industry. However, the Cape and Islands' immense popularity has also led to a dire situation for housing for the people who call it home, me included. More and more local families, multi-generational and wash ashore alike, are leaving the region to places where housing is more reasonable, or at least less unreasonable. The profound housing shortage and unaffordability is affecting my constituents' everyday lives in all aspects of health, safety. Police and fire departments can't respond quickly to emergencies. Local nursing homes are closing. Schools are understaffed. Healthcare positions are filled by temporary staff members, meaning we can't regularly see the same healthcare providers. And local businesses are forced to close a day, sometimes 2 a week, because they can't staff up 7 days a week. Indeed, every year, 1,000 families who make under $100,000 a year are leaving Cape Cod. Our year-round residents are a diverse, working-class populace for whom housing is becoming increasingly scarce. Some more information about my district. Martha's Vineyard Public Schools are 33% students for whom English is a second language. On Nantucket, it's 22% ESL students. 50% of Nantucket students qualify for free and reduced lunch, while 20% of all Martha's Vineyard year-round residents access food insecurity programs. 20% of the island's population. We gather here today to help solve a statewide housing crisis, but this crisis is particularly acute on Cape Cod and the islands, where the profound unaffordability of housing is threatening our community's public safety, education, our access to health care, all because year-round working residents can't afford or can't find local housing. The people on which any community relies, teachers, public safety employees, first responders, just to name a few, can't afford to live here. And this being islands, being a peninsula, any commute from the mainland is quite unsustainable. The Nantucket Fire Department recently released a startling report about the expected loss to human life expected from the department's short staffing. 16 firefighters are needed to fight a fire in a way that doesn't compromise the lives of those responding, and Nantucket just doesn't have that level of staffing. Meanwhile, in Martha's Vineyard, the school district is losing 7 to 10 teachers a year because of housing costs. And these are teachers the district can't replace because the prospect of more hires it just isn't possible with any housing options. And even private employers are beginning to explore, big private employers are beginning to explore housing for their own employees. In the hospitality and tourism sector, which my family was a part of, businesses have long provided housing for seasonal workers. But now we're seeing most every employer trying to figure out how do they have housing. Even the Mass General Brigham Hospital System, which is the state's largest private employer and the parent company of both hospitals on the island. Martha's Vineyard Hospital purchased a 27-acre property that they are now constructing 66 skilled nursing beds and a mix of 48 housing units. Indeed, there are 200 open positions between Nantucket Cottage Hospital and Martha's Vineyard Hospital because employees cannot afford to live on the islands. The next generation of Cape Codders and Islanders are being forced out of their hometowns because few young families can afford a house where the entry-level home price starts at $1 million or more. In my hometown of Truro, a household has to make $400,000 a year just to afford the median home price. The housing situation in my district was already of high concern before COVID-19 hit, but the pandemic has put our housing crisis on steroids. Between 2016 and 2022, the cost of a home on Cape Cod rose 84%. The median home price on Martha's Vineyard has increased 99% since 2016. 63% of the homes on the island are now owned for seasonal and occasional use. and 25% of the island's housing inventory is registered as a short-term rental. The year-round housing inventory on Martha's Vineyard has declined more than 850 units in the decade from 2010 to 2020, while units designated for seasonal or occasional use have increased by more than 1,000 units. The situation is even worse on Nantucket, where 64% of the homes are vacation homes, and the median home price has increased 195% since I took office. The median home price now is $4.5 million, which means an islander needs to make 7 times area median income to afford the average home on Nantucket. These prices are something out of reach for most all year-round residents. And this is deeply personal for all of us living this. A friend of mine who is a very hardworking bartender in Provincetown, he saved $150,000 over 6 years for a down payment with the hope of being able to afford a condo. You know what? He's given up hope of being able to buy one now. One of my best friends, he's a mental health clinician, had to move out of his winter rental and find summer housing. And the only available solution, he and a friend are renting a small one-bedroom for nearly $5,000 a month, and he sleeps in the bedroom, and his roommate sleeps on the couch. One of my closest friends, a couple, some of the most beloved, own the most beloved sandwich shop in Provincetown. They've been in business for a decade. They're thriving. She wrote a book while he tends the kitchen. They love their life on the Outer Cape, but we darkly joke that they'll be forced out of town when their kind yet aged landlord passes away. The other day, my sister and I were reflecting that had she and my sister-in-law not bought a home in Brewster before the pandemic, there is no way they could have ever afforded to move back home to Cape Cod today. And what's caused all this? Wealth, greed, speculation, an insatiable housing market where homes and condos in my district go to the highest bidder, which is always an off-Cape buyer, and usually most of the time it's not even a Massachusetts resident. Cash-only offers with no contingencies and no inspections. There's no way the locals can compete. And there's a budding realization among those of us who live on Cape Cod and the islands year-round that if you don't yet own a home or you're not going to inherit a home, you never will. This isn't right. We can do better than this. Absent legislative intervention, these housing costs and the resulting effects threaten the presence of our year-round community, as well as the health and safety of every single person who visits. The next generation of islanders and Cape Codders are not able to come home to raise their own families, largely because we can't afford to come home and live on our own. And given the constraints of this place, literal islands, a peninsula, right, our geography, the need for space, healthy watersheds, the fragility of our ecosystems, we just can't build our way out of this. The communities I represent are doing some of the most innovative and creative housing work in the state. However, they simply cannot keep pace with the conversion of homes to short-term rentals and summer homeowners. Market forces have wiped out virtually all naturally occurring affordable housing. And so we're really moving to we're trying to figure out how we move to a bifurcated housing market, modeled after successful large-scale programs in Aspen, Colorado and Vail, Colorado, that have open luxury market and a deed-restricted year-round market, the latter that's targeted at year-round working residents with a wide range of incomes at that attainable level. And so while we're encouraged and inspired by the success of places like Aspen and Vail, Colorado, Truckee, California, how they've done this implementation where 30% of their housing stock is permanently year-round deed restricted, right? For us to do that, that is going to cost $500 million for each island, and probably about that much for the Cape. And how have these programs in Aspen and Vail been funded? Simply by a transfer fee. So I have been supporting the towns in my district to utilize every tool and revenue sources available to them, including maximizing CPA, dedicating millions of dollars in property tax dollars to housing, but it's simply not enough. And unlike CPA dollars, the revenue from a transfer fee would not be restricted at that 100% AMI level, meaning seasonal communities could use this resource to subsidize housing for their year-round community. It's unlikely the Commonwealth of Massachusetts can provide the funds to bankroll over a $1.5 billion investment in what's needed. And it's unlikely that my colleagues, as much as I adore and love each of you, would support a $1 billion plus appropriation just for Cape Cod and the islands to stem our housing crisis when, frankly, we can pay for it ourselves if we're given the tools. The Cape needs a transfer fee. The islands need a transfer fee. There is little controversy over this policy in my district. The business community supports this. The Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce supports this. Even our local realtors support it. We have been fighting for the ability to levy a transfer fee on high-end real estate sales to fund year-end housing for over a decade. And I wish my district had this revenue source before the pandemic, because we could have gotten a real head start on digging ourselves out of the hole that we're in now. Indeed, the islands began filing for companion transfer fee legislation in 2004 and 2005 when I was graduating high school. I sure wish we had that today. So we are doing everything we can. We're maxing out our CPA. We're looking at any and all available resources that we can bring. We're going to compete fiercely for state dollars, and I know many of you have met and spent time with and listened to my constituents, and they're smart. We've got great projects, and we will be competitive, and we will continue to get this state funding. But however, state and federal funds just cannot keep pace with the loss of our year-round housing inventory and escalating prices. They cannot target large-scale year-round unit preservation at AMIs over 100%, and they cannot be used to create significant inventory of permanently deed-restricted year-round homeownership opportunities. The Cape and Islands need a local option transfer fee. We will not rest until we get one, because we refuse to surrender that our special corner of the world will only be for those with the most exorbitant of wealth. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and attention and time that so many of my colleagues have given on this topic. I'm really encouraged by what we've done for seasonal communities. We're going to keep at this and getting at it until we can get towards a solution here. And I'm just deeply grateful to my colleagues for all of their kindness and love. And Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to withdraw Amendment 238 as well as Amendment 313. Thank you.